Welcome back to Canuck Summers, Pinoy Winters. Lynn and I are about to start Pinoy Winters. I'm going to start a series, and I don't know how frequently I'm going to do this, and it's just going to be called This Old Carcass. Why? A couple of reasons, but let's get into the history of how I ended up in the Philippines. Hey guys, if you're liking the content, please smack that subscribe button. So how did this old carcass end up living two lives? Well, the back history is easy. The back history is roughly 50 years of living a Canadian life, Western life. And at that state of my life, I was working at a meat facility and producing sausages, and I'm part of the maintenance crew, and we happened to have, I think it was somewhere at the time, roughly 300 Filipino workers working at the facility. And as I had remembered my geography, I always remembered them describing the smaller people and all of that type of thing. And all I saw was, 185-pound Filipinos. And I thought to myself, well, this is kind of crazy, especially when you consider they're all 4'11" to 5'2". Anyway, one day they put on a lunch for the staff. And of course, they're in the lunchroom and they shed all that 16 layers of clothing. And a little caveat here, the facility was running at 2 degrees Celsius, so just over freezing. And so once they got all that clothing off, okay, out popped these 100-pound, 110-pound people. So that was a little bit of a shock, but that was years before I made the decision to fly to the Philippines. I had hit a point in my life where I realized, as a single guy, I'd already been married. I had 3 wonderful children, but now I'm single for about 10 years, and I was looking to start traveling. And I had run across an agent who only took people on tours of about 15 to 20 people maximum. And I thought, well, that's perfect. So I met with the lady. She worked in Vancouver, and she said to me that she had a trip coming to Chile. And Chile and the Philippines were 2 countries that I, for whatever reason, remember, it resonated in my head that I would like to go visit those countries. And so that was going to be the first thing. Now, to digress just a little bit, why not Europe? Well, I had had enough social studies of Europe. We studied everything about Europe. We had very little of Asia, very little of South America. And, China and Russia were my age group. Nobody was going there, right? Cold War and all of that sort of thing. So anyway, here I am. I'm talking with this lady, and she says, "You're not ready for Chile." She says to me, I understand single people, and they want a lot more personal time, whether it's to end up chumming with some of the people on the trip or just going off and being by yourself. And by the way, all of these people had to be over 55. I was only 50, but she said, "I understand your situation. I'd take you anyway." So here I am looking at this whole trip, and then she says, "But you're not ready. You're just not ready, because I cut you loose for half a day, and your ability with Spanish is very minimal." And she said that the country has a lot of hand gestures where they're skipping whole words. I remember her saying to me that reficio, they would only say one word, but if the left hand went out, then that means going to the office. If the opposite hand went out, then it means I'm leaving the office. So that was just sort of an example of why she said I wasn't ready. But she said, you just missed the Philippine trip, and I don't do them but every 2 years. So she said, but I would go to the Philippines because there's a lot of English there. Just get out of your comfort zone and just go. And as you know from a number of my videos, go. So I decided to go, and through the workers, I ended up meeting Lynn. And so she agreed to meet with me in Cebu. And so I get on the ticket thing and I book it all in the whole 9 yards. And it reads to me like I'm going to be staying on the same plane and ending up in Cebu. Just a short stop, offload some people and keep going. Well, that wasn't the case. Now, fortunately, Lynn was smart enough, as I've come to learn she's very smart. She went to the international terminal and looked at the signs, and there was nothing coming from Vancouver, and there was nothing coming from Manila. So very quickly she was a little unsure, but still she was checking the domestic terminal, and she knew there was a flight coming in about the right time from Manila. And I did not know that the general public can't come into the airport. I know all this stuff now, but general public can't go into airports, only people that are doing the traveling. So I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting, of course, and nobody there. So I finally decide to peek out. I'm going to get a taxi and go to the hotel, which isn't that far away. And then there she was. So we met and we kicked it off, and everything was great. So we spent about 7 days kind of banging around Cebu and a few little tours and this and that. And then we say our goodbyes and I go to the airport. She's going back to work. And I get to the airport and she said, "You booked a 10-day trip here. People do this all the time," she says. "You got these overlap days, and because a lot of Canadian flights leave just before midnight, it looks like there's 2 days there." Anyway, I go back to where she's working and I say, "Surprise! I'm here for another 3 days." So I had to do some banging around on my own. And so I did a little bit of that, and then we met up in the evenings and for lunches and that type of thing. So that's how my whole journey started with the Philippines. And then after a little bit of back and forth with Lynn and I and learning financials, I had to send a little bit of money so she could keep talking to me. They have loads, guys. If you're not familiar with the Philippines, they have these pay-as-you-go plans called loads. So I sent her some money to cover these loads. And so about 6 months later, I went back again, this time for 10 days again. And then I think it was only 3 months, and then we did a cruise together, Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. So that was kind of my kickstart on all of this. And then there was somewhere in the process, I can't remember how many trips, I decided to retire. That was enough. I'm just going to retire. And, you know, it was the only company that I left. And I enjoyed the company. I enjoyed the people that worked there. But it's the only place I've ever left as an engineer. I've always regretted not being able to complete a certain project or whatever. And in this particular case, boom, I didn't care. And then after that, Lynn and I ended up traveling for almost 2.5 years, waiting for her visa to come through so she could come to Canada. But that's a whole other story. Anyway, if you like this, give me a thumbs up. If you wanted me to touch on some specific topics, go ahead. But I think the next part will be that 2.5 years, give you a little bit of a taste of some of the foreigners that we ran into. Hey, Michael. Hey, Victor. Peter. 3 key guys. You guys all know about John already. We're still buddies after this length of time. He's still hanging around with me. So yeah, if you like it, give that thumbs up, subscribe. Later, Gators. Watch for part 2.